Hello, Zargons and Heroes. I'm Alfrich, broadcasting the trials and tribulations of Zargon, and this video takes us to the Frozen North to review Zargon's efforts to revive the Frozen horror. Our run-through includes some modifications to address the fact that the heroes had been leveling up using our homemade leveling system, so if you haven't, be sure to check out the videos on that system and the overview of our house rules for the Frozen horror. I'll highlight any rules that were particularly relevant in this video, which will cover the Frozen Horror Solo Quest 1, Xanon Pass. Even though I mentioned that we used some house rules in playing this quest pack, I specifically wanted to test the first quest with one brand new barbarian, since the first three quests are designed, quote, to enable a new barbarian to catch up with the other three heroes by gaining gold, equipment, and magical items. But this one looked far too difficult to use for this purpose. I figured we'd try these three house rule free and see how they stacked up. Matt is a good enough player that if anyone can keep a new barbarian alive through the first few quests, it would be him. We abandoned this experiment pretty early on, as you shall see. First, the plot and the board layout, however. Mentor sends the new barbarian off like this. Good luck, barbarian, on this, your first of 3 trials. Servants of the Frozen Horror have overrun the fortress that guards Xanon Pass. This is the only pass over the Siberian range, which you must cross to reach Ice Mountain. An iron door is your entry into the fortress. You must find the wooden exit door that leads to the far side of the pass. The quest begins on the west side of the board, with the barbarian able to go south, accessing a sequence of rooms with low-level monsters and some gold in the southwest quadrant, or north along the path that will lead the hero eventually to the exit door. The northern path snakes back through the center of the board, really giving the impression of a twisting path through the mountains, something I appreciate about the layout of these quests. Near the center of the board, the hero has the option to explore the northwest quadrant or go south, but not before getting attacked by an undetectable pair of wandering monsters. 2 skeletons. The northwest quadrant has no treasure, except cards, but can also be eliminated from consideration as a possible route to the exit, because the hero will have already explored all the quarters surrounding that quadrant. So a barbarian taking on this quadrant is doing so out of greed and not necessity. This risky quadrant contains some orcs, a mummy, 2 axe traps, and a yeti. More on this in a minute. Continuing south takes the barbarian past a crossbow-wielding mercenary guarding a path across some slippery ice. Should the hero approach that crossbowman, they will earn a significant boon, for the crossbowman will surrender the crossbow and leave the dungeon. From there, the hero continues the winding path south and then north again up the eastern corridor, passing 2 gremlins and another wandering monster trap, as well as an optional and lucrative but very dangerous northeastern quadrant where the hero will face down, potentially, an abomination and a warbear to earn both a shield and battle axe. The attempt to solo this dungeon with an unequipped barbarian was an unmitigated disaster. She fell to the yeti in the second quadrant, and that was without the yeti even applying its poorly written and clearly unplay-tested hug, which is inescapable for solo heroes, rules as written. Knowing this was likely to be the case, we had one other hero arrive. Then, Matt completed the quest with the elf, who traveled ahead of the other 2 heroes in haste to slow down the Frozen Horror, and a new barbarian. The quest was much easier to complete with this additional hero. The Frozen Horror is one of the rare quest packs from the original HeroQuest release, which is why we were keen to play it, but we were consistently struck by how little the pack seemed to be play-tested, and this quest shows many of the hallmarks of that issue. First, there's the problem of the impossibility of defeating a yeti with a solo hero. A yeti who deals damage to a hero automatically hugs that hero. The hero then cannot take any actions while hugged and loses 2 body points per turn. The hug lasts until the yeti dies. A second point where this quest shows its lack of playtesting is in the placement of the polar warbear. By the time a barbarian reaches the warbear in the northeast quadrant, they should have a crossbow. A hero with a crossbow can theoretically take down a warbear on their own. Doing so would simply require staying 7 squares ahead of the warbear and shooting it until it goes down. However, while a hero rolls an average of 7 to move, that movement is not guaranteed. 1 or 2 bad movement rolls could kill the hero. Moreover, such a strategy depends on Zargon moving the warbear in a very predictable way. A second feature that this dungeon brings to light through its extreme difficulty is a seeming assumption on the part of the designer that heroes should not explore every room of a dungeon. Heroes who avoid the northwest quadrant are much better positioned to complete the dungeon than those that complete it. because they will be much healthier for the risks of the Northeast Quadrant, which happens to also be optional. This is a fine default assumption, but given that the heroes playing this quest will have been through either A, no previous quests, or B, a bunch of quests where the assumption is that the heroes will explore everything, it is important to set that expectation at the beginning of the dungeon. Mentor could easily do this, but the quests as written do not. It took Matt and me a surprisingly long time to conclude that this quest pack needed to be played differently from the other quest packs. I ran this quest a second time for my son, who took both a barbarian and a dwarf on the quest, and he had a great time. So, with some modification, I can suggest that this quest works well as an introductory quest, but I would definitely recommend letting a newbie take 2 heroes or letting them run it with some starting equipment. I would also warn any heroes who play this quest, and indeed the quest pack as a whole, to be extremely cautious in their exploration. There is a whole new level of deadly to these dungeons. This Zargon is declaring his minions victorious at Xanon Pass since he managed to kill the barbarian, but he'd love to hear about other experiences in the comments below.